Okay, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA to begin our conversation on reform in the mining industry. Here's a background report put together by correspondent Joseph Otsen.
Across Nigeria, solid mineral resources are abound. Gold, coal, iron ore, limestone, uranium, and zinc, among many others, are documented and mined, mostly for export. Aside agriculture, solid minerals are vital resources experts believe Nigeria can exploit to diversify its economy, but illegal mining and adoption of substandard practices have deprived the country opportunity to maximize the raw materials for economic growth. Sad to note, the mining activities are linked to conflicts in communities where many have had accidents at mining sites leading to death and injuries. Conflict between communities forced the federal government to ban illegal mining at this site in Gembo, Taraba State, and in 2019 suspended all mining activities in Zamfara State to curb the surge of illegal miners. Many of the illegal miners are said to store up explosives which they use for their operations even in residential buildings. Recent explosion in Ibadan, where lives were lost, speaks volume of effect of illegal mining and practices in the country. As Nigeria works towards maximizing the potential in the mining sector to boost the economy, experts advocate stringent regulations and monitoring to ensure that only qualified and active licensed companies are engaged, as well as adoption of modern mining practices. The revocation of mandate to mining sites of 924 dormant license owners is a clear sign the federal government means business.
So the Federal Ministry of Solid Minerals will not patronize any mining engineer or geoscientist that's not registered or certified by COMEC. And all reports that come into our ministry must carry the stamp of accreditation of COMEC.
Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will speak to needed reforms and investment that can help Nigeria explore its mining sector for maximum benefit.
All right, let's appreciate Joseph Oteng for the background report on reforms in the mining industry. And we'd like to begin introduction of our guests in the studio. Let me very warmly welcome Alhaji Lai Mohammed to the studio once again. This time in the capacity of managing partner, Brocosto Government Affairs at All Limited. And of course, we all know he is immediate past Minister of Information and Culture. It's a pleasure to have you again, sir.
Claire, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here once again.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and he is not alone. We also have here in the studio Professor Ayo Omotayo, Director General, National Institute for Policy and Strategic Study, NIPS, Kurujas.
Yes,
Good to have you in the studio here.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. All right, I think I should start with the former Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. I mean, this is a name everybody believes is synonymous with policy, information dissemination. You know, when your name is called, it's policy, information dissemination. Some say Nigerians, forget, but we journalists, we really don't forget. We remember every detail. And I remember, with regards to our conversation this morning on mining, you had made, quite extensive statements about mining, especially when you spoke on the nexus between mining and banditry in Zamfara. You talked about it. You also talked more on what the former government did and all that. But right now you are out of government. I know the viewer will be wondering what Alhaji Lai Mohammed, or the nexus now between Alhaji Lai Mohammed and mining Are you fully involved in mining activities now yourself?
No, Claire, no, not at all. Like you introduced me, I'm the managing partner of Bru Costo. Bru Costo is actually a firm of, it's a Nigerian frontier firm of commercial diplomacy. And what we actually do is that we facilitate, the alignment between the private sector and the government because of the extensive background we've had in the government, and to facilitate the kind of conference like mining that we are doing, that we want to do on Monday and the Tuesday. Actually, what we do in Bru Costo is to actually help institutions, especially the private sector, to navigate the sometimes quite complex landscape of governance. And we watch out for institutions like NIPS, the National Institute of Policy and Studies, which is Nigeria's answer to Chatham House or the Brooklyn Institute, in the US, to partner together to help advise government, in sectoral areas, and we've chosen the first one to be in mining.
Okay, so it's not exclusive.
It's not the hard side of mining; it's the soft side. Like you have computer hardware and software, if I may. But let me ask, if now that you've had extensive experience in government, and so you had a sense of what goes on in the mining industry or mining sector. So what's your assessment of the Nigerian mining sector as it is, and what is it that Bru Costo seeks to facilitate, to enhance? What have you?
Right, you see, of course, I would I believe that Professor Matayo will speak more, elaborately on this. But my understanding of the mining landscape today is that it is a bit confused. It's a bit, there needs to be more clarity on it. And that is why we are here today, to explain the real objective of the brainstorming session we are holding. It is to bring together the private sector in mining, the government, the policy makers, and also the non-profit, the CSOs, to discuss the mining landscape in Nigeria. Today, I said there's a bit of lack of clarity, because if you look at what is happening all over Nigeria today, especially the mining sector, it's like there's this struggle for resource control between the federal government on the one hand and the state government on the other hand. And actually, even Claire, even though I said I am not involved in mining, but actually my baptism into mining was when a client called me. A client's mining site was closed, sealed by the state government. And he called me and he said, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, what is happening? We have the federal government license and permit to operate a mine in X state. We've committed over $60 million to the enterprise. We employ over 600 direct and 400 indirect people. And overnight the government of this state came and closed the mines on the pretext that what they were doing was illegal mining. How can we be an illegal miners when we have the federal government license, we have the permit, we've invested about $60 million, we have about 150 trucks And that the danger of what is being done is that not only are they losing money every day, but they cannot even meet the commitment to their clients overseas. And this is actually what brought me into mining, so to say, in quotes. And this was a year ago, but I can tell you that even as of yesterday, there are cases where mining sites have been closed down by states, sometimes alleging environmental degradation, sometimes alleging illegal mining. And this is what we want to do at this conference, bring together all the sides. One of the things that we do in Brewcos too is that we try to make the various sectors, private and public, talk to one another rather than talking at one another.
Okay, I most respectfully would like to put you on hold. And we have another guest that's joining us via Zoom, Professor Charles Ofebu, and he is Professor of Geophysics and consultant to the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development. Professor Ofebu, if you're there, we're glad that you could join us for this conversation.
Okay. Are you hearing me?
We can hear you loud and clear. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. Sorry, I'm out of town. I'm presently mostly in Anambra State, where I'm setting up a mining outfit as well as petroleum and energy for the state.
Apology accepted. We'll just keep you on hold. Just keep listening in. We want to bring in the DG of NIPS, Professor Ayo Omotayo, also to, of course, give us his own opening statement on. And I like you, Prof, to Alhaji talked about, the issue of clarity. He said the mining landscape, it's not clear, and I'm going to take him up on that because he was the information driver during the last administration, and a lot. I know he said a lot about what had been done to sanitize, to make that landscape clearer. But he says, as of today, it's not clear. In which area are we looking at? Is it in terms of policy or in terms of, the actual operation?
Well, thank you very much. When NIPS is involved in anything, it has to be in terms of the policy and in terms of the strategy. We all are aware of Mr. President's renewed agenda, which of course means that we want to rejuvenate the Nigerian economy. Mr. President has challenged Nigerians, and he has told us that we can do it, we can become $1 trillion economy in a very short time. And for us at NIPS, we bought into that idea, and we looked at critical sectors of the economy that can deliver on that. How can we get Nigeria to a $1 trillion economy? Right now, we're at about $475 billion, which is still like about less than 50% of what Mr. President hopes to do. Now, of these 6 critical sectors identified by NIPS, mining sector is one of those sectors. And then when we put our focus on the mining sector, we found that in actual fact there appears to be too many obfuscating issues with mining. So I aligned myself with what Alhaji Lai has said, that we need some clarity. We should not have any confusion as to how to run these very critical sectors. And of course, if anything is going to work at all, you must think out the policies very clearly. Once you think out the policies very clearly and you look at what can work and what cannot work or what must work, then you look at the strategy. The implementation strategy is very, very key. Who is supposed to implement what? How can we get the mining sector to do what it is supposed to do? Right now, everybody believes he or she can set up a mine. We are not too sure if all the we have heard that about 900 licenses are actually have been given. A whole lot are not working. And I live in Jos right now, and if you go throughout the whole the job space, you find too many mines everywhere. We don't even know what qualifies to be called a mine. People dig everywhere looking for one mineral or the other. Is this supposed to be the work of the state? The state does not give out licenses. Now, we give out licenses from Abuja for mines. Most of these mines, when you give out licenses, they conflict with some other land uses. The state feels that, oh, okay, this is what I want to use this particular piece of land for. But now somebody gets a mining license to come and begin to dig the place. You get to certain places that people have been given mining licenses for. They find that already those places have been dug out. So you can see what Alajila is saying, that there appears to be some confusion, and we need clarity as to who is supposed to do what if we are going to get mining sector to contribute its own quota to that $1 trillion economy we are looking at. For us at NIPS, we've done some calculations, and we are involved because we believe that the mining sector by itself can contribute as much, mining sector alone can contribute as much as 3% growth to the GDP if it is well done. Mr. President is looking at 6% growth per year. But we believe if the mining sector can be well organized and is contributing 3% growth, don't forget the other sectors, we can actually do as much as 10%. I was at the meeting last week and I was telling those who are there, I said, we believe we can even do better than 6%. The baseline Mr. President gave is looking at 6%. All MDAs must work so hard, work together, work together to ensure that we even deliver much more than 6%. We have about 120 million active Nigerians, in the economically active Nigerians. Where are we going to get them to all play a part? So the mining sector is very critical, and as it is right now, the control is not clear. The policies as to who should do what is not clear. Even the base data do not sometimes have. Some of them are subjects of controversy, but like I said, it's all over the place. We need to put in place a sustainable policy.
In other words, you are talking about a governance structure in that sector, which is lacking. Okay, let me get to Professor Fuebu. At least he is in the heart of the mining practice itself. Prof, you've heard our two guests here in the studio, both talking about a lack of clarity in policy, in governance structure. What say you? What is missing from the mining sector?
Well, let me begin by saying that when we talk of mining is increasingly in Nigeria becoming an everybody's football match. Virtually everybody who has a few million naira to spend, a few $1 million to launder, now decide he has one way of doing it to become a miner or to go into mining. The policies are well laid out. I happen to have been involved in the drawing up the acts, even at the state chairman, being the chairman of the solid minerals think tank on solid minerals during the long time, some 20-something years ago. And the policies are very clear. The act is very clear as to who does what. What is happening is that so many people are beginning to do what other people are supposed to do. And at times on a very selfish note. Regarding the issue of states trying to complain, is because most of the mining licenses were not followed. Due processes were often not followed in issuing these licenses. People carry their briefcases in the offices, especially former public officers. And I've been around, I've seen former permanent secretaries from me calling and telling me, oh, I have so many mining licenses. Don't even know the difference between an exploration license and a mining license. And he brings it all out. And I said, okay, where are the coordinates of this license? He doesn't know. Where are these things? They don't have. And the other thing is that the license has been issued to them to carry about. It becomes a briefcase miner. And then just like you see people in lands in Abuja, some people are owning almost all the sea of goods in Abuja, carrying them about. Now, when it comes to actual mining, they're supposed to do due diligence. They're supposed to also have community consent. You're supposed to meet with the communities. You're supposed to meet with them to even sign up for you. And then finally, of course, you need the state where you'll be operating to know what you're coming to do. Because when the crisis begins, it's the state that is supposed to intervene. The state has got to pay the bill. So a lot of these so-called claims, so I hear someone talking about having 100 and something trucks. I wonder where it will be parked. It will occupy an entire village. And I hear someone talking about this. Yes, of course. If the state finds out that you enter the state to start kind of investment, and you not register with the state investment company, you do not even do the government may not even have known that there is such companies existing, and then you float what you call a mining license. The mining, yes, I know. Mining licenses are critical. Under the Constitution, the federal government has a right over all such things as petroleum, solid minerals. The CFOs are issued by states on behalf of the federal government. If things are done properly, these conflicts will not exist. The person who has been stopped from mining by a state possibly has not paid any income tax to the state, possibly has not even done any CSR, any community social responsibility project, and may never even have had a proper EIA. They carry about, I've seen people carry about what they call, in my period, in the short time I've been in this industry, I've seen people carry about what they call environmental compliance. Environmental compliance is not the same thing as doing a proper environmental impact assessment, because mining impacts extensively on the environment. And many of them are then open up. Look at Jos. The abandoned pits in Jos have been swallowing people. I'm happy DG mentioned it. A lot of people have been dying. It is because the follow-up to whatever mining activity that took place there that would have been accommodated in the EIA and then environmental management plan was not done. And if I ask, some people bring EIA, see someone bring me an EIA. I'm a chairman of the Milenco. And someone brought me an EIA, brought me EIA, brought me what he called community consent and so on, not knowing that the town, the community he's talking about, is my own community. A position I hold in the community, somebody else's picture was on it. And this is a very major international company from Asia. The traditional ruler's picture was not the traditional ruler. The chairman of the local government's picture was not the chairman of the local government picture. Pictures are painted and put together. And I said, which is the company that gave you this report? I want to pick them up. And I want to bring in the police. I agreed also some state officials are also there for their own pockets. It's become everybody's game. Everybody wakes up, I'm going to stop those people, the illegal miners. Goes there, you give him 10,000 naira, he puts in his pocket for the weekend and he goes away. There is need for us to now come together. There is need, for example, I'm organizing one in Anambra, in Oka. That's part of what I'm doing now, planning for in July, where we bring together all the stakeholders, bring together the communities, the local government chairman, also part of the problem. Even the federal minister of mines, federal minister of solid minerals, is also part of the problem. Bring them all together. Let's all come together and then map out a way of achieving this thing, which is important. Less emphasis is placed on fossil fuels. This country cannot grow or sustain itself if mining is not done properly and in a very sustainable manner. At the moment, I doubt if we're actually mining. What is happening in Zamfara is a child's play to what is happening in some other places. People are digging up areas where you have uranium. In Benue, we went with the sign. You see the sign there by NNRA. And people are digging all that up and creating future deaths in this country. We need to sit down together, come together, not as talk show, but this time as people who don't want to talk, sit down and say these and these and these are the problems. The states and the federal government.
Yes, Professor Febo, thank you, and we are hopeful that when we return to you, that your connection will be much clearer, and we will be able to, of course, see your face clearly. But let's come back to the studio, and again I return to Alhaji Lai Mohammed, who of course raised the first issue about clarity, and most of what Professor Febo talked about are not policy issues. These are issues of
implementing what exists.
Yes, of operations. And he had said, look, we have the policy. I'd like for you to clarify for us which aspect of this policy is unclear, because I know during the immediate past administration there were quite a number of policy reforms. First, mining is within the exclusive list, but state governments were also given approval to participate, not as you said, not as subnational entity, but as corporate entity. So where is the clash between the state, because federal government still has, the authority, the power. Yeah. Okay.
For me, you can say there are policies that are clear. When the policies can't work, then we say that policy does not exist. A policy must have the strategies with which it can work. Now, we have some confusions right there. Mining of solid minerals is totally different from extracting oil from the ground, okay? Because to mine minerals, anybody can start digging, which is totally different from what happens in the oil sector. Now, in the oil sector, only few people actually have the capacity. But like I said, I live in Jos and I've traveled around Nasarawa. Anybody that is bulky, that has the strength, and that has a hoe and a jigger, and there are lots of them that can go into any place and begin to dig. It's an area where it can easily become everybody's affairs. Ma'am, you can just get up one day, give some young men money in Jos and say, go and find me lithium. And they go somewhere, they begin to dig. The policies that he mentioned are actually there, but for us, as long as they are not working, number one, we say federal government gives the license. Don't forget, somebody is going to dig up the land that the state has control over. That is already policy conflict. I have been given a license to go somewhere and start digging. That state must give you the CFO to occupy the land. Now you are going to occupy the land that belongs to a community. They may not be aware, and those people may be farmers farming on their land. So what kind of policy is there that makes such a conflict possible? So why we are having this conference is to bring all the stakeholders, let us rethink mining in a sustainable way. If we continue the way we are going to set up death traps all over the landscape. When they dig, sometimes they go as 50 meters. Some don't even come back because they can just get buried on the ground. We are saying that the data we need has to be well articulated so that if anybody is going to mine, we know where exactly the person will mine at. We are not even applying all of the sciences that make sustainable mining possible as we speak. So the old policies as we have them right now, we have to rethink them. Now that we are taking mining seriously, and the reason why NIPS is having this with Broadcast is because we know that we need critical sectors of government to talk to each other. That is number one. Number two, yes, you may have the right over certain resources, but then can you explore or exploit those resources without infringing on other people's rights? Don't forget, we still have to sustain our environment. And because mining is something that everybody believes is easy to do, everybody gets involved in it. Like Prof said, there are portfolio miners. I once looked at the portfolio with somebody who has a mining license. We did the GIS assessment. We said, this place, you can't even get there.
Because you've mentioned about 1, 2, 3 layers of stakeholders. Yeah. So are you looking in the area of, because the Constitution already provides that mining is within the exclusive list. Are you looking all in that area? Because if you're going to rejig, the policy, you're also going and bring in this
when we come together, we will talk. Nobody is too sure of what will come out when we meet from Monday. But one thing is clear, the federal government can not issue licenses that states don't know about. And when you give people the opportunity, I have a license, I'm going to the state. Some people don't go to the state. And the state may not even be aware that somebody has a license to go somewhere.
Okay.
So that's recipe for confusion. So we are saying that we have to lay down this, we have to rethink it. Federal government may just wait for the money, know where the mines are and wait for the money. Before they issue a license, okay, let's have licensing rounds. Like say, okay, we are going to issue licenses for Nasarawa. Nasarawa should sit at the table. I'm not. The policies now do not say that Nasarawa should sit at the table. Nasarawa will say, okay, I'm coming. I'm going to come with the community. Okay, when we have identified that you have lithium under the ground, are you ready? But what if the farmers already have planted crops and that is the only thing they do?
What kind of problem is that? Is that lacuna causing?
Oh, of course, that is clear. That's going to be...
It's precisely what this brainstorming is supposed to address. Is what Professor Motayo is talking about. To say we don't have issues in the mining sector today is living in denial. We have issues, and until we come together, all stakeholders, government, traditional community, miners, investors, government, until we come together to table these issues, making mining the cornerstone of our economy will remain a mirage. Now, I'm glad that the Prof mentioned a few issues. Look at the issue of Aboriginal landowners. The average Nigerian who lives in Nasarawa or who lives in Ebonyi believes that that land is his ancestors' land, and he has the right to farm it. So whatever is under it belongs to him also. Now, he is not aware that the federal government, under the constitution, all minerals belong to the federal government. Now, like he rightly pointed out too, we have today too many portfolio miners, and we have so many, what I call RNG, miners. What do? They will take licenses over, land. They have no intention of, mining. They have neither the capacity nor the technical ability. And I'm glad that just yesterday, the federal government cancelled 924 such licenses, because these people have these licenses, and what do? They hold the licenses, and they are now waiting for investors to come, and they negotiate with the investors.
Who issued those licenses? Because I also remember that the cadastral office was also...
The professor has said, under our constitution, only federal government can issue mining licenses. And you see, what these guys do, as long as they manage to pay the annual fees, their licenses are valid. But they do nothing. And they discourage investors because they hold the license. You are a serious investor, and they want to share the... You bring in $100 million. You bring the equipment. Say, because we have the license, we are going to take 50% of your company. So miners will run away. Now, what we are saying that we have issues, the government means what? Both at the federal, state, and local levels. And they all have issues, genuine issues. Now, take for instance, the average state government is saying, you issue licenses in Abuja, but you are coming to my state.
Domain, yeah.
And the environmental degradation is suffered by my people.
So I won't mention something it needs for the state.
What is it you need for the state? That's why I styled my comment, if you remember. I said it looks like there's resource control struggle between federal government and state government. State government is saying, oh, you issue a license in Abuja, but you are coming to my state. And my state is going to someone. What is it for me? So we must sit down and say, how do we carry along the states? How do we carry along the Aboriginal landowners? How do we carry along the investors? And we must make sure that whatever we do, because don't forget that Nigeria is not the only country with minerals.
But carrying the states along does not necessarily mean it will take into... I mean, that even in the oil sector, those communities are also carried along.
You see, unless you sit down and discuss these issues, you will not know what is possible, what is not possible. Yeah. And this is the whole idea of this conference. It's called a brainstorming session with stakeholders. So that we can, at the end of the session, we can now make recommendations. So recommendations will be based on the input of every stakeholder. The miners, the investors, the government, the community, traditional people. But if we go on like this, with this kind of brainstorming session, would always meet, there will be conflicts everywhere. I mean, yesterday I woke up to hear that, to read that a particular state government actually, instructed the, I think the Air Force in the state to take over a complete mine. And this was done at a time when some, expatriates, some foreign investors were on the land. We're not saying the government is wrong, but we are saying let's sit together. Because anytime you close a mine, not only are you losing money, even the same environmental degradation you are trying to prevent, you are encouraging. Because in an open pit mining that gathers water, there's a process of dewatering that must be done every day. Otherwise, the whole place will be flooded. So when you close a mine and you prevent the miners and the company access to the mine, the pits overflow. And it causes the same degradation that you are trying to avoid. So we need to see together. And like I said, Nigeria is not the only country with minerals. Other countries have it too. So if your policies are not investor friendly, they'll go to those countries. Let me say, for example, I am worried that there's no one single multinational mining company that is operating in Nigeria today. Where is Rio Tinto? Where is Bell? Where is BHP? Whereas they are in countries with less infrastructure than we have, with less political stability than we have. Look, Guinea has attracted $25 billion of investment from Rio Tinto to explore iron ore. And it includes building a rail line to a seaport in Liberia. Are you saying that Guinea is more politically stable than Nigeria? Are you saying that Guinea has better infrastructure than Nigeria? These are issues we want to examine at this conference.
All right. Thank you very much, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. Let me quickly get back to Professor Fuebu in Oka. It seems that everybody, both inside the studio and out of it, including you, Prof, agree that some level of conversation needs to happen. But beyond the conversation, what strategies would you suggest that could be deployed to at least get both the state and federal governments to work together without or with minimal conflict, so that the sector can be up and running?
Yes, I think let me start by in Igbo land we have a proverb which you can translate in English that says most often if you're not where a corpse is buried, if you want to assume it, you start from the wrong point. When you look at the Mining Act and the laws regarding licenses, those who worked on it, carefully provided for the role of states, the role of local governments, the role of communities. Within communities, we provided for the role of the women folk, the women leaders, the youths. We had in mind making sure that there will be no youth restiveness, as we had in the oil industry. We borrowed a lot from that. And we provided also for the role of the traditional ruler, traditional institution. And that is why we have the consent regime. The problem is that often we also provided for pre-mining environmental assessment impact to know what will be the impact. We also provided for EMPs to be carried out periodically. And then the problem now is most times the human beings called Nigerians who are supposed to ensure that you don't issue somebody a piece of paper. Let me be frank with you, I've seen ministers, because I've been in public office too, I've seen people come to me, that time I was a governor, they gave me some mining licenses. When he brings it up, I tell him, this is not a mining license. This is a mining lease. You're supposed to go and do exploration work. And so he says, exploration work here? I thought they said there's gold there. I say even in that place you're talking about, Nigerian law does not allow you to mine there for strategic reasons. And if these processes are followed, before a license is issued to you, the communities must have given you a consent. You must fill a consent form, apply for a consent, document your consent. Then before you even begin to mine, after that, you even have what you call the community social, you have to agree on community social responsibility. There's a role where you complete the negotiations and everything. The federal government will sign, the minister will sign for the federal government, the governor delegates or maybe SSG, some states use them for that. And when all that is done, everybody is carried along, you won't have the kind of conflicts you're having between states and miners, states and federal government. Yes, there's been issues like in Lagos. I've been involved trying to resolve an issue in Lagos where a cement company had the mining lease over limestone deposits in Shagamu area. The same time, Ogun State Housing Corporation, that's the name they call it, also wanted to build a housing estate near the place. How do we resolve that? Mining company, yes, you're coordinating, everything covers the whole of that area. Are you going to be blasting on the road? People are using the Lagos Ibadan Expressway. So you move, let people build their houses near the road for aesthetics. It's also beautiful while you migrate inwards and do your mining and then mine your limestone. And then you can also do sustainable mining. You must not open up the entire environment like go to Guma, local government in Benue State. Go and see what some of these coal miners are doing. They are carrying piece of papers. Nobody goes to check. You're supposed to periodically do an EMP. And they open up the place and children are dying there. And then at the end of the day, we now say that we have this code. The document provided for proper things to be done. It's just that they're not being done. And that is why the minister is always cancelling some licenses and suspending some. Because most of these people carry them, not just in the briefcase, but are destroying the environment. And they're working hand in hand with expatriates. What is going on is that they're working hand in hand with expatriates and bandits. And the banditry that is associated with mining now, the so-called illegal miners, again, there's a policy in government that says, let's create a MIREMCO, Mineral Resources and Environmental Management Committee. A lot of people don't know that committee exists. Some people don't have regards, mining companies don't have regards for them. That committee is supposed to help the federal government, help the state and federal government actually drive the mining sector peacefully. That committee is made up of representatives of relevant MDGs in states, headed by a chairman appointed at the federal level, with the state involved in the nomination of whoever is the chairman for that state. And then they are supposed to work hand in hand with the states and the federal government for peaceful mining, peaceful coexistence. Yes, we need to talk. This talking will be done at state zonal level. For example, we take the Southeast, you assemble them in Oka, in Enugu, and begin to talk. Because the responses, the minerals they have, the levels of knowledge of the people are different. Then you go up north again, where people are used as slave labor. A lot of people don't even know what is their own. Even down here in the east, people are going and looking for gemstone in places like Enugu, again, all kinds of places. I've had cause to ask them, what are you doing? You carry this young girl, you drop her inside the pit to go and pick a gemstone for you. And you expect this girl to go back and get married and have children. And so on. So we need to talk. But at the same time, let's pick up the policy as it exists. Yes, it's even on the Mining Act, it's under review. Yes, let's look at it. If there are places that have been mistakes, we'll correct it. But whether or not these things were captured, they were captured. But because of those who implemented, those who were supposed to execute the policy, let me be frank with you, they owe a lot of questions. They owe a lot of answers to Nigerians. And there's need to audit who and who plays which role in issuance of these licenses are still floating all over the place. And then those who are doing the mining themselves too, we would also need to know, did you do a mine design? The man that had been stopped mining the other day, I was called and asked by a governor, I'm not even for that. I said, let me be frank with you. I want to see the paper. And when I said, what is your mining design? Where's your mine design? Your design. We are supposed to design to make sure the environment is accommodated. You're supposed to design to make sure you carry along other aspects of the economy. Mining is not supposed to run over economic activity. It's supposed to be on its own, while at the same time accommodating, integrating with other aspects of the national economy, so that other sectors, so that we'll grow peacefully. I agree, there's need to talk. And when we want to talk, we have to bring in the artisanal miners, one or two people representing them. And then, mind you, also the federal government introduced what they call cooperative mining, where you come to a community, rather than using them as slave labor, put them together into a mining cooperative. We also advocated that and prepared for it. Put them together into a mining cooperative, have them registered free of charge by the cooperative department of the state. Don't charge them money. When they have been fully registered, documented properly, the Mirenco documents them, the state mining office will document them. You recommend them to Abuja, they are given one cadastral mining unit free of charge. That cadastral mining unit they are given becomes their collateral for a money that we give to them. It used to be 5 million, now I think it's 10 million naira by Bank of Industry. Bank of Industry gives that money, it's part of the solid mineral funds. And they go into mining in a very organized manner. There may be 10 cooperatives working from that. And then also there's a minerals market the federal government has set up where when they produce, they don't need somebody to take it from them. They go and sell it to the minerals market. And the equipment leasing policy is also in place. State governments have been advised provide equipment that these cooperative miners can take to produce so that there will be sanity in the sector. We need to, I'm sure there are a lot needs to be done. We need to touch up. These policies are old. When we worked on them, it's been a while, but we need to touch up on them. But whether or not these things were captured, we actually did capture many of them, but people who are implementing them are not doing it. Let me quickly just say, because I'm going into another meeting, let me quickly say too that there are overzealous Shylocks, hawks. The state governors may not even be aware of what they are doing. All kinds of people put themselves together and go about harassing miners. That needs to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for finding time to be part of this conversation. You've really made some very valuable contribution, and we want to appreciate you. We'll have to let you go at this hour. You've asked to be released for another meeting. We do appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Professor Fuebu.
Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me in.
All right. Let's come back here. Again, Professor Fuebu kept saying that the provisions are there, for everyone, for every player. He said so. The Constitution makes provision for the states, for the local government, for the women, for everybody to participate. And yet we're having these issues. We also have the issue of, taxation, double taxation. Local governments collect taxation, the state government collect all from these miners. And Alhaji, you spoke about these issues and the efforts that previous governments brought in to address these issues. So I'm just wondering, what context are you envisaging this talk now? To follow.
Professor Fuebu spoke so much about some policies, and he said provisions were made for this and for that. It is clear these things are not working. When it is not working, it means that something is wrong with the policy. That's why we are trying to say, let's sit again. This is about, in a way, it's about data gathering. Okay? We want to know exactly, okay, we have operated these policies, they appear to not be operable. That's why we have to sit again and talk. For us at NIMS, it's important that every critical stakeholder comes to say what they have been experiencing. You can sit in your office and set up policies, but when you go to the field, you want to see whether these policies are working. It is clear from what he said that the policies are not working. He is saying that the policies have not been well implemented. It may be that it is not possible to implement those policies the way it is thought out. We have been operating for the last 10 years. We still have so much confusion. How can we stop state governors from harassing, from what he said, they harass miners? Local government harass miners. Communities harass them. Area boys harass them. How can we stop all this? Everybody digs up everywhere. It talks so much about EMC, EIA. All of these things are not being done. How can we ensure all of these things are done? Okay, he mentioned about somebody being buried and then you're trying to exhume, you don't know where to exhume from. It is simply because we probably did not foresee a whole lot of things that are happening right now. When I'm in Jos and I'm traveling around the community and I see, I'm not against white people. I wonder, I say, why are white people mining directly? What's their business carrying Nigerians to go and dig pits? Who gave them the right? Who gave Chinese the right to go into our villages carrying our young men to start digging pits? Who gave them those rights? Who should enter the pits? He spoke about people not having mining design. How can an artisanal miner have a mining design? It's not working.
So what are the specific objectives of this roundtable?
Well, I said at the beginning, the specific objective is to bring together all the stakeholders. The government, who makes the policies, the government that issues the licenses, the government that makes the regulations, the states where the operations are carried out, the local government that feel the impact, negative or otherwise, of the operation. The miners themselves who not only put in money but other resources. The traditional rulers, and most importantly also the security agencies, because there's a lot of insecurity also, linked to mining, whether you call it legal or illegal.
Legal, yeah.
Now, so the whole idea is let everybody talk to one another. Let's see where the issues are. Then we'll now make a recommendation we're going to give to government and say, look, this should be the pathway to sustainable mining in Nigeria. But what we have today is the various parties talking at one another. I stay in Kwara and I say this is what it should be. Another guy stays in Abuja and says no, this is not what it should be. Let Kwara come, let the miner come, let the investor come, let the community come. Because what we have today is under many guises, investors are paying too much money. For instance, I know a state that set up what is called environmental trust fund.
Can I just just to ask you to hold on for a moment? We'll just take a short break. When we come back,
okay,
I'll let you continue on your framework. Thank you. Please, let's go for a short break. All right, welcome back, and you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We're looking at reforms, the round table to reform the mining sector in Nigeria. We have here in the studio Alhaji Lai Mohammed and the DJ of NIPS, Professor Ayo Omotayo. Alhaji Lai Mohammed, you were speaking, just before we went on break. Yes, and
yes, I was saying that there's no alternative to this round table brainstorming, because it's the only avenue and problem you're going to have for all the stakeholders to actually bring to the table their concerns, their challenges, and then there'll be cross-fertilization of ideas. That's why it's called roundtable. And when you look at our agenda, and I'm sure Prof is going to speak more to it, it covers virtually every issue that has been raised here, from community relationship to using technology to curtail the impact of degradation, from who is in charge, policy reforms, even to issues of how do we access capital, how do miners access capital, because mining, unlike most other endeavors, is very capital intensive. Because it involves heavy duty earth moving equipment. And so today, we don't have any single financial institution devoted and dedicated to mining, which is why other countries in the world that are doing mining are probably even better than us. So it's all the issues that will be discussed around. And I think
thank you, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. Let me get to Professor Mota. We do a lot of talking, a lot of talk shops in Nigeria, in every sector. I'm not talking about the mining sector alone. A lot of talk goes on, a lot of paperwork is done. But when it comes to the crux of the matter, which is carrying out that which has been said, implementing that which has been said, we have a problem. And you have as much as alluded to that as a problem. And so what makes this particular roundtable different, and who is coming? Do you have the buy-in of critical stakeholders who will come to that roundtable to talk about it and then follow up with implementation?
Well, let me state again that for us at NIPS, we cannot implement, but we do the work of thinking. We think for the government and we submit recommendations saying this has not worked so far because of so and so reasons. Let us change the gear. If you are driving a vehicle along a path and it's not moving as far as you want it to move, or moving in the manner in which you want it, you can change. You select your gear and change it. Mining in Nigeria as it is not on auto run. If it were on auto run, you don't need to change the gear. But right now it's not on auto run. That is why we are saying let's bring critical stakeholders. Who are the critical stakeholders? He mentioned them. The federal government is a critical stakeholder. The state is a critical stakeholder. The local government are critical stakeholders. The communities, they think, all of these 4 levels, they think differently. Those are all critical stakeholders. Now, that is on the governance side. Now, on the science or the technical side of it, we need to say miners, who are those who have the right to mine? Now, there are 2 types, those who have the technical know-how and those who have the money. As it is those who have the money that are getting the licenses. So who should be offered a license? Is it should be based on the money, or what are the basis on which you should be given a license? Now, before you are sent to any state to mine, do we have a central way of knowing exactly what is currently existing in that particular place? There should be a national database. There should be all of these covered by geographical information systems telling us what is where currently. I was giving you a side talk the other time that I got approval from Ogun State government to do an estate, a residential estate. And after we had spent so much money, another company came to say they have mining right over where we had started building an estate. How did that come to be that Ogun State government then was not aware that the federal government had issued a license over that same area? Look at the loss it caused those of us who invested in that estate at that time. Should we leave this at the behest of only the federal government, when the federal government may not even have do not control the land? So all these holders are going to come. Okay, they will tell us, we have gone into the field, this is what we have found. We have operated the policies, these are the problems. There is no policy that is cast in gold. Yeah, you might have been part of a group that formed a policy thinking that that policy will work. But most policies don't work because the implementation strategy is always faulty. And once it is faulty, policies will not work. A lot of people talk about policy somersault, policy somersault. It is always due to the fact that we do not accompany our policies with implementation strategies. And that is one of the things NIPS always advocates for. That once the implementation strategy for any policy is not positive, that policy cannot work. So we have said that any policy that cannot have an implementable strategy should not be called a policy. And don't forget, policy is still under the law.
Okay, let's look at some. Assuming some of the outcomes from this roundtable involve legislation, which means that, of course, it will have to go through the National Assembly. A bill will have to come, just as we have, the bill permitting states to also get involved in
Power.
Yes, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. What happens if it gets to that stage?
As a matter of fact, one of the stakeholders that were invited, the chairman of both the Senate and House of Reps on mining, and incidentally, the chairman House of Reps on mining has even indicated that he might not be able to come, but he's Senate representative. Now, if you look at the list of our stakeholders, it involves not just only Minister of Solid Mineral Development, the Minister of Steel development is also invited and is coming. Minister of Environment is coming. Minister of Defense is coming. The IGP is coming. So for us, all those that will take, decisions, including the legislative arm of government, they are all coming, and this will be declared open by the Vice President himself. So I don't think we can go higher than this in terms of, an inclusive stakeholder list. We're not saying that this one conference will solve all the problems, but it's definitely a beginning for it. But it's like we realize there are problems. We realize that there are, lacunas. Let's all sit down together. Otherwise, on the books, everything is perfect. There's miracle. There's all these, councils that are supposed to meet to resolve, differences between the community and the miners. But are they working?
Well, shouldn't we have thought of this line earlier than now? I mean, this is something we would have done long ago. The issues in the mining sector didn't just start today.
I don't think this is not the first. This will be the first conference on mining. Believe me.
No, but that's why I was on this magnitude, because
you see, but can we say because we have not resolved? I mean, a problem is not resolved, so we should give up? We won't give up. We'll continue until we get there.
Well, we'll keep talking, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. We'll keep talking. I'm worried about the talk. What happens after the talk?
Like I said, you see, at this particular talk, we have the Vice President, we have the Ministers of Environment, Minister of Steel Development, Minister of Defense, Minister of Solid Minerals. We have the chairman in the both, chambers of the National Assembly. So we have state governors. Thank you, coming. So who else are we missing? As a matter of fact, we are inviting we have invited the Emir of Kefi, who is not just a traditional ruler, but who used to lecture in mining in West of Nasarawa before. So we have thought of all those that we think can make a difference to this conference.
The reason why mining activities, were banned in Zamfara at a time was because of the nexus.
Yes.
You connected with banditry and other,
Yes.
criminal activities, right, and all that. Is this brainstorming also targeted not just at making, the area?
There's an entire,
yes,
session devoted to the security of not just personnel and equipment, but to the entire, stability of the states that are mining. The NSA is coming also, and many of these people are going to anchor and moderate very key, sessions. Now, we are not saying that we have the solution to every problem, but we are saying at least we have identified the problems and we have identified the strategies to think we can combat it.
Will your company, after he kept saying talk, after the talk, will your company drive the actualization, the how will I put it, the realization? Yes,
actually.
Yes. Or are you just going to end at bringing the document and submit it?
No, actually, my company has a partnership with NIPS, not just on mining. We've entered into a memorandum of understanding. Or now the number one think tank in Nigeria can work with us in areas of policy implementation. So we even agree that after the conference, we will also sit down again to X-ray, analyze, do a post-mortem, and what are the next steps forward. We are not going to just, finish the conference and stop there. No, we are, like I said, we would even make a report which we are going to hand over officially to the government. And of course, NIPS has extensive, contacts and extensive influence, and we hope we'll be able to follow up until implementation is done.
Yes, it's very key that we try to solve. We are trying to get Nigeria to do a $3 billion economy in a few years. We have identified the mining sector as being key, and we know that the way the mining sector is currently it's not going to deliver its own fair share of that $1 trillion. economy. So once we have this conference, we talk to stakeholders, we get data, we put recommendations together to government, and then I'm sure with some of the ministers coming, they might be able to do some memo to FEC too. And if anything has to go for legislation, we already have the key people, committees who probably were there, and then things might change. I believe that the conference is necessary. You know, this is not going to be a talk shop, but unfortunately, Nigerians are tired of talking. But we still must talk. Get the concept right, because you have to start talking.
That's what this does.
Yeah.
Stop talking. What will NTA be doing?
So we bring I'm very sure, and this is a listening government. We must deliver on the renewed hope agenda. This is for us.
What's the theme? What's the theme of this conference?
This is sustainable mining in Nigeria. And when you say sustainable, number one, everybody must be taken care of in a positive manner. For the federal government, we must get mining to contribute its fair share of the $1 trillion economy we are looking for. From the environmental side, we must ensure that we do not dig up all of the degradation and cause degradation. It must deliver on that. On the financial side, those who bring in money must make their money back. And once they make their money back, they pay the taxes that will help states, communities, and the federal government to have the financial wherewithal to grow the economy. We need the GDP it can provide. Once it is properly organized, government can even easily project the GDP that will come. We can look at the number of jobs that will come from it, and we can be rest assured that we are not degrading our environment with mindless mining. Yes, artisanal miners must play a role. Exactly how do we get them to play a role? Can we train artisanal miners? Can we license them? These are all the issues that will come up, so that the mining sector will be properly organized, and federal government can say, this is what I'm going to get from the mining sector. As it is, we may not even have, if we let it continue this way, a whole lot of money will be lost within the system. Mining has its own value chain. Let us see clearly what this value, where this value chain leads into, who is benefiting at every stage, and how can we deliver value overall to the Nigerian people and the Nigerian economy.
All right,
those are the things that we think should come out.
Everything now is, leaning towards renewable. Everything now is renewable energy and all that. And since we're talking about sanitizing the mining industry, that's one area that really needs, modern technology and all that. And I'm wondering, would there also be talk about, injecting renewable energy and other, modern strategies to revitalizing that sector?
Yeah, that's a very interesting, area you have opened up, because today the mining industry is also facing pushbacks from advocates of climate change and environment. But again, this is why we have this conference, because we must be able to navigate very cleverly that landscape, especially for Nigeria and Africa, foreign countries, in the sense that in UK, coal was mined for about 200 years in Newcastle to build the foundation of the economy. Now, Nigeria today, we still need our fossil fuel, we still need our solid minerals to develop our economy, create jobs and industrialize. But at the same time, we must also be sensitive to the issue of climate change and environmental degradation. So this is even a whole session that is curated at this conference. How do you strike that balance between climate change, environmental control, and the economy? Clearly, we all agree that it cannot be business as usual. But what we need to do is we need to strengthen those arms of government that are responsible to ensure that we have responsible mining, responsible exploration. So it's a real issue, but like I said, you can see the pushback that the whole world is even getting. I mean, that has been, on the issue of fossil fuel. On the one hand, you want to develop your economy. On the other hand, you want to save the planet. So you must get that balance right.
Okay, okay, we just have a minute.
A moment to round off your thoughts.
Well, let me thank NTA for giving us this opportunity to promote the conference. We know that mining is very critical.
You haven't told us where it's holding.
Oh.
It's at Abuja Continental,
Yeah.
former Sheraton Hotel.
On time?
And it's 10 o'clock daily, 29th and 30th of April. That's Monday and Tuesday next week.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Motayo, Director General NIPS. It's been a pleasure having you on Good Morning Nigeria. And former Minister of Information, Managing Partner, Brew Coastal Government Affairs et al. Limited, immediate past Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. Thank you very much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Once again, thank you.
See you again.
Once again, thank you very much for giving us the platform to inform the world about this conference. Thank you very much.
All right, and that has been Good Morning Nigeria this Thursday. We hope you enjoyed it. Join us again for another tomorrow. I'll be here. I'm Victor Azu.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdulrazak. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow.